Alright everyone, now it's time for a kind of chuckly one, a kind of a funny story. This is from 2017 actually, so this is the dawn of the Trump presidency when this was written. Link in the description, of course it's archived. This is why we must archive everything, because then we can do what so-called journalists no longer do. They used to, back in the golden era, let me tell y'all whippersnappers a story. All you youngins out there that are under late 20s, I would say. You probably don't remember the golden years of the 90s and the 2000s quite so well. You're too young to care about politics, you weren't born yet or whatever. There used to be a time in the United States and in other countries when politicians would have their statements and ideas that they put out compared to previous incarnations of what they said. When news items from years ago were compared to news items from today and ridiculed by the competitors of elements of the legacy media by other legacy media because it was entertaining to mock them for inconsistencies. Here's a great example, and I hope that the document haul from the Maralagoraid includes this edition of Time magazine from 2017. I will make a brief quote from one of the passages with regards to Donald Trump here. The president automatically declassifies as he goes. The premise is that there is no declassification process with regards to material. If Donald Trump decides to speak about anything that he wants under the sun, and I've talked about how this is necessary for the function of the presidency that's literally constitutionally incepted in the diplomatic sense. If the president talks to a staffer or a fucking open room about any topic, it automatically declassifies that material. There is no further process for declassification. The Presidential Records Act be damned. That's an Obama-era shtick that has nothing to do with it. That has to do with document retention. The fact is, though, that if a document is marked classified, but everything within that document has already been spoken of to another person, the content of the document is effectively unclassified. That doesn't mean that the document itself can't necessarily be repatriated to the National Archives, but that's not against the law to retain it against their will. That's an entirely different story. Right now with the Maralagoraid, the warrant that's being considered involves the Espionage Act. But if the material was spoken of, if Trump spoke to a staffer, to Mike Pence, to his wife, to an emissary from some other country about part or all of the content of something that was classified, with very few exceptions involving nuclear secrets or the names of private individuals who are being used by the U.S. government as informants or something, he has carte blanche to do whatever he wants. And it automatically declassifies the material being spoken of as he is proceeding with that conversation. The reason is because the chief executive is going to necessarily need to talk about these things. He's going to have to bring it up to staffers, to aides, to confidants, possibly family members. Certainly in a diplomatic context, certain classified material might be shared with allies. He's talking to the Prime Minister of the UK or the leader of France or something like that. He's talking to Mark Rutte, the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, and he brings up something that's technically classified involving energy systems and saying, hey, you know, those pumps that you're using, we conducted a classified report from the U.S. Army. They were tinkering with it, trying to find out if they could use it in dock systems, and we found that they exploded 9 times out of 10 under the right conditions. You may want to take a look at your pumps. Well, it's declassified. You just told someone who's not even an American about it. It certainly doesn't have security access, that the pumps that they're using on some dike outside of Amsterdam might blow and it might flood the city. You've done a good thing, by the way. You saved a lot of lives potentially in the process. The president has to be able to bring these things up to third parties. Most of these people will not have top secret access. Only a few of them are likely to even have access to sensitive material, let alone actual classifications. I would point out further beyond the hilarity of this now 5-year-old article effectively making the same argument as Trump. And this is Time. They don't like Trump. They're part of the legacy entertainment and media complex. They're pointing out that he has the right to share whatever fucking information he wants within virtually no limits because there is no official oversight process over the president with regards to it. Beyond the hilarity, though, I still find it funny that so many people are melting down over the issue of classified material at the Mar-a-Lago, when if you look at the inventory list, most of it's not even marked sensitive. Out of the over 11,000 pages of material there, you're talking about a couple hundred potentially classified documents. They've got headers. Can I ask something else? Because you also have empty headers as well with nothing in them. Is it possible that Donald Trump decided to take one of those headers, because the header itself isn't classified, and stuff something else inside of it? Like one of Barron Trump's crayon sketches, just to troll people because he knew that they were coming? I wouldn't put it past him. I think it'll be funny. Raymond Deary has to look through Barron's colored pencil art collection and Melania's fucking napkin scribbling. That'd be so funny. It'd be so goddamn epic, and it would be so fucking Trump. So I think that there's probably a 50-50 chance that something like that is afoot at this particular point. I really hope, though, that the time cover for the one that mentions this particular article is in that framed collection that they took from the Mar-a-Lago. Because then the second that they see it and then they see what was in the article, they're going to say, shit, I think that we fucked up a little bit messing with Trump for the 6th or 7th time. You'll remember, there's not a whole lot still going on with J6 other than Liz Cheney constantly trying to proffer herself as some sort of activist. She's trying to get money, by the way, by doing this. She got shit-canned by the voters of Wyoming. She's going to be out of a job in less than 2 months. Her career is effectively over. Don't expect her to mount a serious presidential run, by the way. Maybe an independent candidacy where she'll pull 0.5% of the vote to try to explain why Trump lost a second time or something like that. They might try that, to be clear. We'll have to analyze further after the midterms. The point, though, is that for diplomatic reasons, and there is no binding SCOTUS case, there's no binding case with regards to whether that executive privilege can be rescinded, and I'll explain why it can't be in a moment. The fact is that there is no oversight process for declass. Declass is that Donald Trump declared it to be declassified at some time, and he's continuing to deem them declassified. The problem is that it is probably not going to happen that the Supreme Court, if it gets involved, and we'll have to wait and see, sides with Biden on his statement to the National Archives as of the middle of May that he revoked executive access from Trump to the documents that he had there. You can talk about document repatriation, but that's not what the warrant pertains to. The warrant pertains to the Espionage Act. It doesn't have to pertain to Presidential Records Act. They're totally different things. The warrant doesn't list that explicitly, at least in its justification for having an actual raid. It's talking about the Espionage Act. That would be a bait and switch and a fishing expedition, just to be clear, and would probably be illegal. The problem is that if a court sides with Biden and says, yeah, the sitting executive can remove executive access to materials and so forth from the prior executive, that's fine because the chief executive is the one currently in their stewardship at the moment, but in office in general. The problem is that no president will be able to conduct diplomacy. No president will be able to continue getting briefings and interacting with people within government, within the military, because they won't have access to any of the material, and if they're given it, they will probably try to reject it and say, no, I'm not going to listen to that. I can't take your briefing today because I'm afraid that the dude in office doesn't like me, will revoke my executive privilege, and I'll get in trouble for even having had this conversation. The fact is that it would be legally untenable. It would completely incapacitate the diplomatic capabilities of the executive branch of the United States. I notice that they don't worry about anything that Mike Pence may have taken home. I think that there's a reason for that. So yeah, they're a double standard, even contravenes their own previous standards. That's when you know that there's bullshittery afoot from Time and from similar legacy media groups. They weren't the only ones who made statements like this back when people were worrying and wringing their hands together about the Russians gaining access to U.S. intel reports and things like that. They weren't the only ones pointing it out. That's about all. Peace out.